Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 988 for January 23rd, 2023. On the road this week at the Victoria Whisky Festival in Victoria, British Columbia. We'll have highlights from the weekend in Victoria and a look at the state of Canadian whiskey with Canadian Whisky Awards Chairman Davin de Kergommeaux and the surprise winners of this year's Canadian Whisky of the Year Award, the team from Sons of Vancouver Distillery. That's all ahead, along with the What I'm Tasting This Week department, a special edition of Your Voice, and much more. All on this week's WhiskyCast.
And now, a message from Robin Redbreast.
People never forget the person who introduced them to Redbreast. And then those people go on to introduce others to Redbreast. And soon the flock has grown exponentially. It's like a pyramid scheme. Without any of the bad stuff, of course.
Proud sponsor of WhiskyCast.
Hey friends, Gabriel Cardarella here with Dewar's Scotch Whiskey, and I can't wait to introduce you to the new Dewar's 12-year hitting shelves this holiday season. More a little later in this episode of WhiskyCast.
Let's get started with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. We'll start in Western Canada, where investigators are still trying to figure out what caused an explosion the other day at Alberta Distillers in Calgary. Firefighters were called in after the blast in the distillery's dry house, which is where spent grains are dried after the mashing and fermentation process. Here's Beam Suntory's Mike McLean.
Thankfully, nobody got hurt. I don't know exactly what had happened. I just know that they were dealing with the insurance people, and I'm pretty confident that something on our capital improvement wish list got moved up the ladder a little bit quicker.
It happened in the dry house, right?
Yes, it did, yeah. They don't know, at least not to my knowledge yet, they don't know exactly what happened, but like I said, thankfully nobody was in there. There's one person that was close by. Nobody got injured, so knock on wood, everything works out okay.
The distillery has been shut down since the explosion, but is expected to return to normal operations this week. 5 years ago this weekend, British Columbia liquor agents raided Fett's Whiskey Kitchen in Vancouver and 3 other bars, accusing them of illegally selling Scotch Malt Whisky Society whiskeys that the bars did not get through the official provincial liquor agency. The other 3 bars settled their cases quickly, but Fett's owners Eric and Allura Fergie kept fighting their case, hoping to get back more than $40,000 of whiskey seized in the raid. Now, Eric Fergie is claiming victory.
1,774 days after the raid, the government signed the document saying they're going to relinquish the whiskey to us, and we won.
But it came too late for the bar, right?
Yeah, sadly, because we'd already made the decision that we were going to wind it down. We were just too busy and wanted to get on another chapter of our life. So
what are you going to do with the whiskey?
Hopefully it comes with a couple new livers. We're not sure. No, it's private stock, personally owned by us. So we will just have to build a new room in the house.
Are you glad this is finally over with?
Oh, we're very glad. It's been a long, long haul. We're both very happy it's done.
They're still waiting for the whiskey to be returned. Under provincial laws, it could have been destroyed. Unfortunately, the Fergies made the decision to close Fett's at the end of last month when their lease expired. We have word out of Kentucky of a similar raid this week at the 2 Justin's House of Bourbon stores in Lexington and Louisville. State ABC agents seized bottles of vintage whiskey at both stores after receiving complaints accusing the stores of violating the state's vintage distilled spirits law. That law allows individuals to sell bottles of unopened bourbon and other spirits to licensed retailers, but it also comes with a lot of record-keeping requirements. The store's owners released a statement on social media pledging cooperation with the state investigation. The Lexington store reopened this weekend after being closed since the raid, and the Louisville store is scheduled to reopen this week. In other news, White & Mackay is bringing its Fettercairn single malts into North America starting here in Victoria this weekend. The company is reallocating stocks from European and Asian markets to North America, as Kieran Healy-Ryder and Fettercairn whiskey maker Greg Glass explained.
We recognize that the North American consumers are really growing in their enthusiasm for Scotch, and it felt like a natural place to have the brand. We'd launched it initially into Europe and Asia, and fortunately demand had pace supply, and so we've taken some decisions to refocus. We recognise that Canada's a really important place to start, and the intention is that thereafter we'll be out through the USA, most likely through our partners with Gallows. So we're launching here at the Victoria Whisky Festival with Mark Anthony Brands, and we're really looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say about it.
And Greg, tell me about the whiskeys you guys are launching with.
Yeah, so we're launching here with our 12-year-old, 16-year-old, and our 18-year-old Scottish Oak edition as well. So those are the three that we're starting with in the market this year.
And more coming?
Yeah, absolutely. So for all of us at White Mackay and Fettercairn, we're really excited to sort of start off our journey of sharing the diversity of flavour that we have at Fettercairn Distillery over the years. So this is a great start and brilliant to get the feedback from consumers in the market.
Once again, the initial launch will include the Fettercairn 12-year-old, 16-year-old, and 18-year-old Scottish Oak expressions. Ian MacLeod Distillers is putting the finishing touches on the revived Rosebank Distillery in Falkirk, Scotland. Spokesman Gordon Dundas says the first production should begin this spring.
We're getting there with Rosebank, a few last-minute issues, but we're going to be producing spirit, I think, around about April, which Malcolm Rennie's very excited about. Malcolm can't wait to get going, so he's going to start playing with temperatures, yeasts, barleys, all these things that will make that triple distilled spirit through those same stills and through those worm tubs a typical Rosebank. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be very much in the same vein, I think. So April, I think, for spirit, which is great.
And then a visitor centre later this year?
The visitor centre is coming on stream. We've got a couple of things just to overcome in terms of car parking, which is, but I would hope September time for visitor centre open to the public. Everybody will be wanting to come, so we're more than excited.
Ian MacLeod recently became a partner in the Isla Boys Distillery project on Isla. Groundbreaking on that distillery near the Isla Airport is also expected this spring. Finally, there's a new Northwest Whiskey Trail making its debut this weekend here in Victoria. The trail stretches from Oregon in the south to Vancouver Island and the British Columbia mainland. Graham McAloney of McAloney's Island Distillery here in Victoria is one of the founding members of the trail.
Down in Oregon, we've got Westward Distillery, great award-winning distillery there, and it's all about the quality, of course. In Washington, we've got Westland and Copperworks, who are doing some really good stuff there too. There's ourselves here in Victoria, McAloney's Island Distillery. Up Island, we've got Shelter Point, winning great awards and starting to export whiskies as well, like the others. And then we've got Goldstream also on the island. It's quite a small craft distillery. But the criterion is you must have consistent whiskies, good quality whisky, and have a tasting room and tours. And then on the mainland in Vancouver, we've got Deep Cove Brewers and Distillers.
The goal is to highlight the Pacific Northwest as a single malt whiskey region. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at WhiskyCast.com. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Time now for the WhiskyCast calendar of events. Hansa Spirit is this coming weekend in Hamburg, Germany, along with the Bergen Beer and Whiskey Festival in Norway, the Denver Winter Whiskey Festival, and the Chicago Winter Whiskey Festival. The Whiskey Global event is coming up on February 3rd in Vancouver, BC. Edel Dropper, the One Glass Festival, is February 4th in Stavanger, Norway. And the following weekend is Whiskey Spring in Schwetzingen, Germany, and the Highlander Whiskey Festival in Alkmaar, the Netherlands. If you're organizing a whiskey event, please let us know about it, and we'll add it to the calendar at WhiskyCast.com.
Gabriel Cardarella again, here to tell you about the all-new Dewar's 12-year-old Scotch whiskey. Crafted by Dewar's 4-time IWSC Master Blender of the Year Stephanie McLeod, the new Dewar's 12-year is now double-aged in first fill premium bourbon casks. It's full of red apples and peaches on the nose, hints of lemon zest and floral notes and subtle spice that'll expand into an incredibly lush fruity character before you hit that long creamy finish full of butterscotch and vanilla. It's no wonder that Mark and the good folks at WhiskyCast gave this whiskey a 94-point rating. Just what you'd expect from the world's most awarded blended Scotch whiskey, Dewar's.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Mortlock and the Classic Malts lineup. The annual Canadian Whisky Awards ceremony kicked off the Victoria Whisky Festival Thursday night with surprise winners. Palm Trees and a Tropical Breeze from Sons of Vancouver Distillery was named Canadian Whisky of the Year and the Artisanal Whisky of the Year, while Pendleton Directors Reserve took top honors among large producers. I talked with Canadian Whisky Awards founder and chairman Davin de Kergommeaux the day after the ceremony.
I think that Canadian whiskey really is progressing and it's changing. I think people's palates are changing. We're finding a lot more of big, flavorful whiskeys. We're finding a lot more whiskeys that really are maybe a little bit out of the purview or the range of what most people think of when they think of traditional Canadian whiskey. We've got some wonderful all-rye whiskeys. We've got some wonderful all-corn whiskeys as well that were big winners last night, and we've still got the great, wonderful blended whiskeys as well. So I think that we're growing. We're getting much more credibility. People now know how to find the good ones, and I think it's really helping the category move forward.
The whiskey that won Canadian Whisky of the Year honors, Palm Trees and a Tropical Breeze from Sons of Vancouver Distillery. Tell me about this whiskey and why it won.
Well, this whiskey is very flavorful. It has there's some notes like burned wood or something in there. There's a lot of spice. There's notes of people would probably say vanilla, but it's more like marshmallows to me, things like that. Why did it win though? I think it's because the blending is just remarkable. The woman who does the blending at Sons of Vancouver, Jenna Diubaldo, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, she has an amazing nose, and she really just works with the whiskey and she gets it right. And so this whiskey, it hit all the touchstones, and there were no sore thumbs on it. It was just beautiful, but at the same time, very complex. It is an all-rye whiskey, but it's a beautiful whiskey that's just made by a perfectionist, and she's made it perfect.
And she beat out whiskeys that I think a lot of us would have expected to be contenders for the award, like Lot 40 Dark Oak, the Canadian Club 45-year-old, whiskeys that any other year probably would have won.
Yes. I think that I found it a little bit disruptive to the whole idea of the Canadian Whisky Awards, that someone comes along with a whiskey like this that is just so far out of the box and so truly wonderful. Let's not kid ourselves. Lot 40 Dark Oak is a wonderfully made whiskey. It is doing wonders for Canadian whiskey, and it's going to continue to do wonders for Canadian whiskey. You know my love of Canadian Club Chronicle series, and the 45 really is a beautiful, beautiful whiskey. Honestly, I could not have. I didn't in a million years think that a small distiller was going to be the best distillery of the night. A lot of great whiskeys. And the thing is that there were a few, like two brewers from Yukon. They entered some wonderful whiskeys, and it seems to be pushing the scores down, because you take some of those whiskeys that really were like best in show a few years ago, like Confederation Oak from 40 Creek. And I can't remember if it got a silver or a bronze, but it did not get a gold medal, and I find that kind of a bit dismaying. I have to agree with the judges, though, because the judges, all of our judges are good this year. We normally throw out any scores. We use a statistical package to figure out which scores really are, basically random numbers. And this year we didn't have any scores that had to be removed. So it's... I think that the category is changing, and I think that the small distillers are kind of, well, I could say disrupting, but they're changing the balance of what people come to expect from great Canadian whiskey. I mean, this is happening with bourbon, and it's happening with Scotch as well, but it's much more noticeable here in Canada, where our artisanal distillery movement is still kind of in its infancy. And so every year they get a little bit better. I think we're in like 12, most of the ones that have been around for a while are 10, 12 years old. Guess what? Whiskey that's 10 or 12 years old tastes a heck of a lot better than 3-year-old whiskey most of the time. Yeah. So it's I'm scratching my head, and I'm quite puzzled about how can we continue to represent Canadian whiskey globally, identifying the very best whiskeys, when twice now the winner has been a whiskey that was not even available to purchase by the time the awards came out. The first time, of course, 40 Creek with their 22-year-old rye, which honestly, I felt like I'd been hit over the head with the bottle. It was just so amazing. But by the time the awards came out, there were none left. Part of that was LCBO. But anyways, and now we have Sons of Vancouver again winning with a whiskey that has already sold out. And it's kind of a conundrum for me, because these really are in the opinion of the judges the most enjoyable Canadian whiskeys of the year. But I'd also like people to be able to go out and buy the whiskeys that are the winners. Last year when Crown Royal Winter Wheat won Whiskey of the Year, the LCBO, the world's second biggest liquor store, sold out within one day. 24 hours, it was gone. And, so people really want to get the whiskeys that win. And I'm really puzzling with this. How do we continue to encourage the very, very best whiskeys, and at the same time make sure that people can find the winners? Maybe we'll have to list them differently or something. I don't know. I'm just it has caused me to think maybe we need a strategic rethink on the Canadian Whisky Awards. Maybe we have influenced Canadian whiskey so much that now we're, as I said last night, now we're victims of our own success.
The Sons of Vancouver victory was so unexpected that the distillery's owners didn't show up for the ceremony Thursday night. They got on a ferry Friday and came over to celebrate their win. I sat down with blender and co-owner Jenna Diubaldo and co-owners James Lester and Max Smith over breakfast Saturday morning. First of all, James, tell me your reaction to winning Canadian Whisky of the Year honors. This is, I think, the smallest distillery to have ever done so.
It was 100% surprise. And nice to be considered in such a class.
Tell me about this whiskey, Jenna, the Palm Trees and a Tropical Breeze. This is a name you would expect to see on a Scotch Malt Whiskey Society whiskey, but it really lends itself to what the whiskey tasted like.
Yeah, we uncasked the whiskey, blended a bunch of barrels together, and we were sort of like hit with this like big banana nose. We use a French Saison yeast when we do our whiskey, so it tends to bring out like banana, clove, baking spices out of our rye. And so we got hit by this big banana nose, and both Max and I were like, man, this would go really great in a rum cask. So we ended up getting our hands on a couple of rum casks and left it in there for a while. And when we just tried to like steer it towards the tropical fruit note and like bring out sort of like enhance those like big like pineapple banana notes in the whiskey.
Tell me about your philosophy for blending whiskey, because you blended this and put it together.
I would say, like, the blending is really, like, a collaborative effort between the three of us. But I think we generally, like, try to let the whiskey sort of do the talking. So we identify notes and flavors that are already there in the whiskey and then try to bring it into a direction rather than sort of just like trying to blend out a good whiskey. Or sort of looking for something specific and sort of a specific theme that you want to go to. And that's how we typically end up naming our whiskeys as well. So, you know, with Marshmallows Over a Campfire, we got this like big vanilla bomb. It was like sort of vanilla sugar that really reminded me of like a toasted marshmallow. So we steered it in that direction. With Palm Trees, we got all those tropical notes, and so we just kept pushing it in that direction and went with the rum cask. And that's how we like to do it. It's like, I think like the most organic way to blend out a whiskey, and like we don't have any whiskey on the shelf 24/7 right now, so we're able to do these little releases and just sort of like let the whiskey decide what it wants to be and then go in that direction with it.
Max, give me the origin story for the distillery. How did you guys come to found it a few years ago?
Well, the distillery's been around for 8 years. I've been with it for 4, but Sons of Vancouver is the birth of James and his partner Richard, and they have moved to Vancouver from all across. They've lived all over BC, but put us together as a small project. Like, we're a very much kind of by our bootstraps distillery, so to speak. Everything is very much cobbled together and done in perhaps the most efficient, but also like with a lot of care. It's got a lot of things have developed over time, and what you see presented to you is kind of a culmination of a lot of efforts, like to build this together as a collective project.
James, you only release a handful of whiskeys a year. Is that going to change?
It is, yeah. In 2024, we're hoping to have a whiskey like on the shelf all the time. Right now, we're kind of looking at what we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 years anyway, is just 3 releases a year. This is hopefully the last year, but with the way things are going, it's just moving so quickly that I almost wonder if 2024 is just going to be the same thing, but we're just moving more bottles and they're sold out constantly.
And Palm Trees in a Tropical Breeze, how many bottles did you produce of this one? And because it's already sold, it was sold out months ago, right? Yeah. That was released sort of mid last year. There was less than 400 bottles of it.
250-ish. 280, I think.
280, Jenna?
Yeah, 280, 275, something like that.
Jenna, what does it say about a small distillery taking top honors in the Canadian Whisky Awards?
I mean, we're just baffled by it. Like, we're blown away. Not only, like, that we're a small distillery and there's all these big guys with unlimited resources, but, like, our peers in the craft category, too. Like, you know, people like Divine or Two Brewers, like, they're putting out some great whiskeys. So we were also very humbled to walk away with the top honor, too, like, just out of the craft category. So for us, like, it's huge. I think what we hope that it does is to, like, really turn people's attention towards craft producers. I think, like, BC producers in particular are putting out some of the best whiskey out there right now in Canada. And I think we're, like, really trying to push whiskey back to what we think it should be, that, like, we want to see high rye bills, we want to see big flavors, we want to see cask strength. You know, I think hopefully this will sort of push things in the right direction that way, and you know, hopefully we can contribute to the whole Canadian industry in that way.
Sons of Vancouver also won a silver medal for their Marshmallows Over a Campfire whiskey. Other big winners on the night, Two Brewers entered 7 whiskeys in the competition. All 7 won gold medals, and Batch 33 took home Single Barrel of the Year honors. Rifle Rye from Alberta Distillers won Best New Whiskey of the Year, and we've posted a link to the complete list of award winners at the WhiskyCast website. That's WhiskyCast In-Depth. It's brought to you by Mortlock, whiskey's best-kept secret. Hidden away for decades in some of the world's most famous Scotch whiskies comes a single malt inspired by an original for a fortunate few. Discover the entire Mortlock lineup at malts.com. Let's start off the What I'm Tasting This Week department with the Canadian Whisky of the Year, Palm Trees and a Tropical Breeze from Sons of Vancouver Distillery. It's bottled at 53.5% ABV. The nose has notes of caramel, anise, warm honey with black tea, vanilla beans, and a touch of baking chocolate. The taste has bananas, dried fruits, and a hint of lilacs, along with a nice pepperiness and hints of honey and vanilla. The finish is long with subtle spices, and I'm scoring Palm Trees and a Tropical Breeze from Sons of Vancouver a 93. Pendleton Directors Reserve won the Whisky of the Year award for large producers, along with the Blended Whisky of the Year award. It's bottled at 40% ABV, and the nose has touches of leather, tobacco, butterscotch, hints of almond and white pepper, and a subtle touch of citrus. The taste is robust and dry with baking spices, honey, molasses, and caramel notes, and the finish is long with lingering spices and a touch of oak tannins. I'm scoring Pendleton Director's Reserve a 93. Got to taste the Benromac 40-year-old here in Victoria. It's the 2021 release, bottled at 52% ABV. The nose has touches of caramel candy and fudge, along with honey and butterscotch. The taste is full of berry jam and baking spices with a touch of oak, and the finish actually brings a spike in the spices before fading away gently. I'm scoring the Benromac 40-year-old a 95. My highlight of the weekend, though, was the Kuro Wood Smoke Rye from Finland's Kuro Distillery. The grain was smoked with alder wood, and it's bottled at 47.2% ABV. The nose is woody and warm with baking spices, campfire smoke, and a hint of smoked salmon. The taste is full of cloves, cinnamon, and a hint of ginger root, along with black cherries, campfire smoke, and smoked salmon. The finish? It's long and dry, and I'm scoring the Kuro Wood Smoke Rye a 93. I'll be adding these tasting notes to our searchable list of more than 3,400 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out at WhiskyCast.com.
And now, a message from Robin Redbreast.
Kentucky and Ireland have plenty in common. Two homes of horse racing. Bluegrass music is said to have Irish roots. Okay, it's not the longest list, but the Redbreast Kentucky Oak Edition only strengthens the bond. Finished in sustainably sourced Kentucky oak for a captivating nose and round taste. I see a triple crown in this thoroughbred's future.
Proud sponsor of WhiskyCast. Redbreast. Pass it on.
Let's open up the inbox now for Your Voice, presented by Scarabus Isla Single Malt Scotch Whisky. This week, the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction released a new report funded in part by the Canadian government. It came right out and said no amount of alcohol consumption is safe and recommended people have no more than 2 drinks per week. As you might guess, that report did not go over well here in Victoria. I asked festival attendees their thoughts about the report.
And I looked at my wife that night and I said, I'm in trouble because I have 2 drinks a night. So will I modify how I drink? I might, because often people are talking about it and you feel a little bit guilty having as much as you want. And over COVID times, I don't think I'm the only one that really indulged a little bit more than I should have. So maybe you do bring things back. Maybe you taper things in a little bit, but I can't picture staying within 2 a week no matter what I did. I don't have that ability, Mark. I don't. I'd love to say that I do, but I see something shiny and new and beautiful, and I want to be part of that. So, and whiskeys makes me happy.
Well, in short, it's not going to work for me, but I do appreciate why they are saying that. It's good to have some kind of self-control and to limit yourself, but, I guess when you say drinking, you don't have to assume that it's always in excess. And I think the number 2 is a little low. for me personally, considering, I really enjoy the Scotch and whiskey community.
Yeah, I'm not sure what drove the report. I guess that's what you always got to look at. It's going to be very hard to stick to 2 drinks a week. And we don't drink a lot of other stuff other than Scotch and whiskey, so occasional wine. So when you like whiskey as much as we do, I'm just going to have to ignore it.
Life is about risk. You're going to enjoy yourself. You're going to take risks. So I don't really worry about that too much. You?
I'm not worrying about it.
Interesting. I always like to listen to this advice and this guidance, but I like to interpret it for my own health in my own way. I drink very responsibly, and if I go beyond the limits that they are recommending, I do so at my own risk, and I'm quite happy with that. Drink responsibly, and I know what that means for me.
I think that there's a large body of evidence to the other argument, right? Lots of people who talk about the benefits of a drink or two long term, right? Or even short term. So I think that, like, my wife and I were actually talking about this, how every couple months there seems to be a study that sort of flips you on something, right? So I think that that's what this is right now.
Thanks to everyone who shared their opinions with us for this week's Your Voice. If there's something you'd like to share with whiskey lovers around the world, you can always look for me on social media. Just check for WhiskyCast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or just email me. The address is comments@whiskycast.com. Your Voice is presented by Scarabus, the Islay single malt from Hunter Lang & Company that celebrates all of Islay's natural gifts in one bottle. Only those who seek shall find Scarabus. Start your search today at hunterlang.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. It's brought to you by Writer's Tears. Lots of people changed jobs during the pandemic. In many cases, their previous job went away, while others re-examined their priorities and changed careers. Beth Havers was the longtime brand ambassador in Canada for Glenfiddich, but left that job during the pandemic. She is still involved with whiskey, though, as a baker. She started Aunt Beth's Cookies with whiskey-flavored cookies.
Well, I've always cooked and baked with whiskey. It's been I love, obviously, whiskey, and baking and cooking is my second passion. So I've decided to meld the two worlds and create Aunt Beth's Cookies.
And how did you come up with the various recipes?
So basically working with different brands, the partnerships, having a whiskey in mind and then coming up with a recipe that would kind of complement it. So the Smoke Show cookie that you were just trying, which is made with Ardbeg, that really went well with toffee and chocolate. And then we have a beautiful Singleton toffee shortbread, Canadian Club Ryan ginger, because it's a classic drink, and just kind of having fun with them. But yeah, it's been a real fun adventure.
Is it better than being a brand ambassador?
I love whiskey brand ambassadorship as well, but this is kind of it's very similar. I'm still at a lot of trade shows and talking about beautiful products and beautiful whiskeys, and it's been a lot of fun.
And you get to make cookies.
I get to make a lot of cookies, and thankfully I have bakers to help me in this venture, because the cookies wouldn't look as good as they do if it was me in charge of making all of them. But yeah, it's been a really fun thing, and I have a great team behind me, so I've been really fortunate.
Where do you hope to take it from here?
So this year we're hoping to get into more retail accounts, so to making it more of a grocery store option, because a lot of people, obviously we're trying to get them to the masses, and doing them trade show by trade show has been a little bit challenging through this. But so this year we're hoping to get into grocery stores.
And we wish Beth the best of luck on that front. There's a link for more details on the WhiskyCast website. If you have something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just use the contact form at WhiskyCast.com to get in touch with us. Behind the Label is brought to you by Writer's Tears.
Writer's Tears Copper Pot, an 18th century style of premium Irish whiskey, blended from single pot still and single malt. Like yourself, it's one of life's treasured rarities, and what's rare is wonderful. Writer's Tears Copper Pot.
That's all for this edition of WhiskyCast from the Victoria Whisky Festival. Special thanks to Frank Hudson, Lawrence Graham, and all of the volunteers here at the festival, along with the staff of the Hotel Grand Pacific. Get in touch with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast. The email address, comments@whiskycast.com.
Me again, Gabe with Dewar's, encouraging you to seek out the new Dewar's 12-year-old and experience it for yourself. Until next time, friends, we wish you all the best from everyone here at Dewar's, and please drink responsibly.
And now, a message from Robin Redbreast.
Small batch. How would you describe it? It's like an Irishman's understanding of baseball. Extremely limited.
Proud sponsor of WhiskyCast. Redbreast. Pass it on.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2023, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. But this time around, I'm in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.